Coming up next on Tech News Today, Google went public with an exploited Windows 10 vulnerability 10 days after telling Microsoft. Also, Code Fights aims to curb unconscious bias by gamifying the hiring process. Uber Elevate is Uber's plan for a flying car future, the science that drives the best Halloween party tricks, and shopping for bacon in VR. Duh. All that and more coming up next on Tech News Today.
This is Twit. Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today, episode 1631, recorded Monday, October 31st, 2016, Halloween. This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by Jira Service Desk from Atlassian. Jira Service Desk delivers everything your IT team needs out of the box at a cost-effective price. For a free 7-day trial of Jira Service Desk, visit Atlassian.com/twit.
And by ZipRecruiter. Are you hiring? With ZipRecruiter.com, you can post to 100-plus job sites, including social networks, all with a single click. Screen, rate, and hire the right candidates fast. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/twit.
And by Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Rocket Mortgage brings the mortgage process into the 21st century with a fast, easy, and completely online process. Check out Rocket Mortgage today at quickenloans.com/TNT.
Welcome to Tech News Today. This is the Halloween edition.
No, this is normal.
This is normal.
This is just normal life. This is what we look like when we're not dressing up for work.
Yes, exactly. I am the Ray of Tech News.
And I'm a purple Pee Wee Herman.
Or a dead Bill Nye.
Or a dead Bill Nye. Or, I'm not going to be a dead Bill Nye. I really like Bill Nye, and I don't want the science guy to go anywhere. Inside Out. Okay, all right. I didn't quite pull it off, but I'm Fear from Inside Out. There you go.
Maybe you need to look a little more fearful.
He does this a lot.
That's good.
So there we go. All right.
Awesome.
Cool. My duty is done here. Should we talk about Halloween stories? We've got at least a few kind of. Well, one later.
Maybe one.
And technology stuff right now. So let's get to it. It is fitting that today is Halloween, and GIF, the image file format that seems like it was resurrected from the dead in recent years, is driving Giphy to new heights. Giphy, whatever you want to call it. Giphy announced $72 million in new funding with a valuation at $600 whoa, I got that number wrong.
$600. $600 million.
There we go. $600 million.
I say $600.
I know. Dang it. This really is a crazy day. All this for a company that has no method of monetization whatsoever. Giphy plans to use the funding to build out its editorial staff to increase its GIF library so it can be seen as the YouTube of GIFs. The company also announced a tool called Giphy Loves Vine that will turn all of those 6-second Vine videos that Twitter is about to abandon into animated GIFs so that they can live on in comment threads forever and ever, or at least as long as GIF still remains relevant.
I don't know. What does evaluation mean? Like, this just seems silly. I mean, the article says the company excites investors because it grew so fast. I mean, like, isn't that something you should be suspicious about? A company that grows so fast. I don't understand how they think they're going to be the YouTube of GIFs, because I mean, that GIFs are mostly someone else's content that they're making money off of. And it's like, I guess YouTube has some parts of, maybe people illegally post, other people's YouTube videos and make money off of it. But right now it's like all of that stuff.
That's my spirit animal right there.
And that's like, is Pixar getting money from that GIF? I don't know. So they would have to take away a lot of what, they've already been doing. They have no exclusive deals with people. They don't own these GIFs, so they'd have to figure out a way to own them in order to really legally make money off of them.
Or steer in a different direction. Like you take Bitmoji, for example, and I don't know how Bitmoji is making money necessarily either, but they're creating a lot of that art. And if Giphy can have the business that, 80% of the activity on Giphy right now is TV and movie clips. And they even have a team dedicated to events as they're happening, to just like pulling moments out of them and creating new GIFs and everything. So maybe a lot of those things aren't necessarily, able to they aren't able to monetize those because of copyright concerns. But if Giphy can kind of, I don't know, go down a route of creating original content that could be sponsored, for example. I could kind of see that if everybody's using these in messaging. I mean, it's not so far-fetched. Snapchat has sponsored filters, and that sounded ridiculous, but people are still using them, and they're actually, those sponsors are making lots of money through it. So I could see an analog to this.
Yeah, I guess so. But like Snapchat wasn't offering us all those, like pre-made filters before that they were stealing from the company, right? Like, I mean, all those GIFs we see of TV shows, the TV shows are not getting paid for that. Yes, they're creating it. Yeah, Giphy is making the GIFs, which...
Yeah, they're making the loop.
Yeah, like, which I also could do, and so could you. So, yeah, I don't know. I see that there's room for this, and I see that there's a... yeah, like Star Wars not getting paid for that. But I see that... there's room for this, but not at $600 million.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Well, and I mean, it's not so far out of the realm of what Silicon Valley and just startup culture is, right? Like for so many of these companies that are making lots of money now, they spent years and focused entirely, not even concerned with how they make money even in the long term. Really, their focus is just let's create and facilitate and grow and captivate this wider and wider audience. And at that point, then we will be, it will be appealing for us to roll out something, for a sponsor to buy into that, let's say, and suddenly we can monetize all of these people who are already using it on a regular basis. It's a pretty common approach for Silicon Valley. It's just weird when you're talking about animated GIFs and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like sponsored search results would be something that works, but I mean but right now, I would pay for a sponsored search result because I want you to come to my content. Like, does a GIF of a GIF of us, does that bring people to our content? I don't know. So. Well, here's something really scary for Halloween. VentureBeat pointed us to a post on the Google security blog that reveals a critical vulnerability in Windows for which no advisory or fix has yet been released. Google says they reported this vulnerability to Microsoft 10 days ago, and it is Google's policy to release their findings in that time period, whether or not the company has released a fix. They also say that they have seen hackers actively exploiting this flaw in the wild. The Windows vulnerability is a local privilege escalation in the Windows kernel. So Google has done this before. They disclosed unpatched vulnerabilities in Windows twice before Windows was able to fix them. They did that back in January of 2015. So update your Windows as soon as you can.
How do you feel, where do you, I don't know, what does your gut tell you as far as Google going public with something like this when there is an active exploit out there? Because there's a lot of people, in reading up on this and kind of thinking through it, a lot of people that kind of side with the idea that if the exploit is out there, calling more attention to it has got to be bad. Now more people are going to be affected. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I even thought, should we do this story or not? Because this isn't a story that really got, headlines everywhere because, there are probably people thinking why talk about it more so more people can hear about it. But yeah, I don't know. But Microsoft should fix this stuff. But I mean, there's also the argument that 10 days isn't long enough. That's what they have a bug bounty, but they don't, their waiting period for the time that they will pay someone, to that, points out a bug, they will, that person has to wait a lot longer than 10 days. So yeah, I don't exactly know how long it takes to create a patch.
Well, yeah, I guess that's the challenge there, right? Tesla, there was a vulnerability a few months ago on the Model S, right? And that had the potential of remote access or whatever. Took them 10 days to roll out a security update to address that inside the car. So it is possible. I don't know the complications, though, when you're talking about Tesla and a particular model of a vehicle versus Windows 10 products, And it's, aside from that, I mean, Google issued this policy in 2013. It actually said that it would publicly disclose after 7 days. So I suppose, that's an extra few days, but Microsoft has a large market, right? 90% of the market. If there are already exploits out there, I almost feel okay, cool. You had 10 days. This was already a big deal. Get on it. But yeah, I guess the flip side is you don't want to either also just punish Microsoft for not coming up with something in 10 days and just pushing out whatever they happen to have, right? You want them to do it right when they're actually going to focus on it. And that becomes the big challenge.
Exactly. They were probably busy working on their Halloween costumes.
Yeah. And that Surface thing that they were, they had that announcement. They're we'll deal with that later, that security stuff. We've got this fancy computer. talk about. Researchers from MIT, Stanford, and University of Washington released a study that indicates the level at which racial discrimination is taking place with ride-hailing services like Uber and Lyft. Riders with noticeably ethnic-sounding names posted to their profile were more than twice as likely to have their rides canceled by drivers, according to the study, ultimately resulting also in longer wait times for them. Sharing photos with a profile would also influence those rates. I guess with the study, they had 1,500 rides in Seattle and Boston, 4 black, 4 white research assistants, evenly split men and women. They ordered cars using their names and in some cases their photos, because on Lyft you can use your photo, but on Uber I don't believe that you share your photo. At least that's what the article said.
I think that
maybe the driver doesn't see it.
They don't see it until they pick you up.
Until they pick you up. So they have different ways that they're approaching this, but yeah. I guess the rate of cancellation for kind of ethnic sounding names was disproportionately higher.
Yeah, and the cost was higher for some, and the routes were longer for women.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah.
I found that really interesting too, right?
Right,
like,
because
hey,
we don't know. Just drive us around. We'll talk, and yeah, we'll pay whatever. So yeah, so it looks like Uber, they found like they did find discrimination. Lyft, they found less discrimination, and then Flywheel, which is the service that they sell to taxi companies, they found less. So that was the least discriminatory based, and I don't even think they use photos. But I mean, it's interesting it's important to point out that taxi cabs themselves had bias. Like they, and no one was paying attention to it. It's been well known that like cabs wouldn't go to certain neighborhoods, or they would just drive by people. They get to like choose who they're going to pick up, and no one's tracking that. So it's one of those things that like now we have the technology to know who's getting picked up and who's not, who's being discriminated against. So it's similar to the Airbnb story that we've been reporting, where there was the hashtag Airbnb while black, and they showed the sort of the same racism when someone looked at a picture, looked at someone's name, and thought, well, I don't want to, I don't want to rent to that people. And then they hired Eric Holder to represent them, to help them figure out how to be less biased. And I think what they've decided to do, one of the things they're working on, I think, is to make people be punished if they cancel. Like if they say, oh, you can't rent my house, and then they rent it to someone else, there'd be like some sort of punishment there.
Yeah. And I mean, Uber penalizes drivers who cancel a lot. I think it's the correlation between how Uber and how Lyft came across in the study also is very indicative of the process that happens on both of those services, right? Like with Uber, you request a ride, the driver doesn't know, photo, name, none of that. It's, can I pick you up? They accept it. They decide, actually, I don't want to pick up that person. They cancel. So there's an instant signal that happened. With Lyft, they know up front. So before they even make any sort of action, they just either choose to accept it or they choose to do nothing with it.
Yeah.
And so it passes through. So it kind of gives the impression that Lyft actually came out ahead. It's just, I think that it's less reported, less capable of being reported based on the system that's in play.
Yeah, that's a good point. The drivers also, you can put in your destination there, but you don't have to, which I thought was interesting, because we took a Lyft from San Francisco to Petaluma. And I thought, I'm going to let the person know that, they're going to have to take us an hour away from the city.
Right.
And, I thought, well, why don't they automatically put that in? And because it's for that reason. They don't want drivers to say like, well, I'm not going there, or I'm not going to that neighborhood.
Right.
So they do have that ability built in some ways, but I think it sounds like they could do a little bit better.
For sure.
And here's another story about bias, unconscious bias. It's in all of us, whether we're willing to admit it or not. And there are many out there who make the argument that women or people of color are just not interested or good at coding. Now, a new startup aims to find out if there is any truth to that. Code Fights is a new San Francisco company with 150,000 users. It lets job candidates compete against bots or against each other in timed coding competitions. Job seekers can also hone their skills by competing against themselves in the self-paced Code Fight arcade. Now, once you reach a certain level in Code Fights, you'll be asked if you want to be connected with the company's partners to look for jobs. Now, Uber has used the platform to present specific ride-hailing problems to potential coders. The video game-style challenges help filter candidates without letting the bias of hiring managers get in the way. So I thought this was a really good use of technology.
For sure.
It's just like they're playing a game and hoping, gamifying the hiring process is always good, is also good. There was we interviewed someone from 42, which was a tuition-free coding school and the screensavers. And we talked about this, and it's sort of the same thing. It's like, survivor of coding camps. Like whoever is best at it gets to stay. And in this case, in the 42 case, get free tuition to school. We've been talking about this for a while. Like Dartmouth and Harvey Mudd both have now been graduating equal number of males and females in computer science. So I just don't know if I buy the women just don't like it. They just, there are no women in my classes. That may be true on an individual level, but I think across the board, it's not necessarily true.
I think what we're hearing about this that I really like is that it really kind of strips everything down to the skill and the ability, and that's the most important thing, right? Like, can you do the job that we need? And as you go along in this game, it really seems like you're gathering your experience points, and then you get to defeat the level boss, which is essentially all the jobs at the other side, with the interview. And if you make it there, then you kind of get to pass through the gates and talk to them about a job and bypass, like you said, that unconscious bias that might creep in with just a name on an application, let's say.
Or just you went to Stanford, or, right. Or you worked at Google, or all the other ways that people are getting filtered out. Yeah. In the very beginning and then never ending up in this space.
Sure. CodeFight, by the way, gets 15% of the candidate's first year salary if a company hires through the program. So then I guess I have to wonder, how much our company is actually, interested in using this program. I hope a lot, but I'll be curious to see how that develops. Mm-hmm. And this just in, the music industry is struggling to deal with the threat of pirated compact discs. That may sound outdated, but apparently it's still a huge problem. Amazon, along with other online retailers, are offering counterfeit CDs that often cost just as much as the real deal and look nearly as pristine. Driving the sales are Chinese pirates who offer new CDs a few weeks after the initial release of an album on sites like Amazon for slightly less, if not the same, of the standard cost. And many times those illegitimate copies end up in Amazon's buy box. The Recording Industry Association of America launched a study in August to test the severity of the problem, finding out that 194 ordered CDs that they placed for the study, 44 were counterfeit. It's a pretty big number. 18 of those fulfilled by Amazon itself, and Amazon has a zero tolerance policy on the sale of counterfeit items. It's working to identify those who are offering fraudulent items on the site. And I mean, this is a topic that we chatted about very recently as far as Apple's chargers are concerned. We even had an emailer write in to kind of clarify a little bit of the process behind the scene. Amazon allows third-party sellers to pool, I guess, their inventory with identical items in their warehouse. So if you've got an item that's seemingly identical, put that in air quotes, it ends up on the same shelf with the same code, the same barcode. And so often it's next to impossible to tell the difference between the two. They're just seen as the same thing, even though one is counterfeit and one is not.
It seems like Amazon should do a better job at this.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you've seen people selling counterfeit CDs on the streets all the time, and it's not like anyone patrolling that street is just like, oh, well, the streets are too big. We have too much to do. I mean, there's police that make, that catch people that are trying to sell CDs, and Amazon needs to do that too. I mean, I was reading about this, and they do something called brand gating, which I guess, they are a huge website, so this must be very difficult for them. But they charge legit sellers more. So like Nike, Adidas, Hasbro, they have to pay a one-time refundable fee of $1,500 per brand. So that they say, okay, I've paid for this brand. This is my, brand. I can sell it. And then third-party sellers have to submit official invoices. So they have to prove that so if I'm selling Nikes and I'm an official seller of Nikes, I have to submit my invoices from Nike and say that, yes, I'm allowed to sell these Nikes or these CDs or these chargers or whatever it is. But this is great. I mean, that's 1 out of every 4
I know, right?
was counterfeit. And it's obviously they're like people moving into a place that, the RIAA are not paying that much attention to anymore, right?
Yeah,
they're going after people downloading music, not people selling CDs. So
I just hadn't realized that many people were still buying CDs, you know?
I know. I
saw this article when I ran across the headline on this article. Like I did a double take on the data. I was like, wait a minute, is this? Oh yeah, this is the last couple of days. So, so apparently it's a big deal. CDs still desirable, I would say, probably because of the whole artwork, liner notes, all that kind of stuff that you get in a counterfeit. The problem is the person on the other side of the screen. I mean, there's no indication there that you are actually buying a counterfeit, right? It's the same issue. So then the problem falls on the shoulders of Amazon to improve that. Coming up, forget self-driving cars. What about flying cars? That's the future. But before we talk about that, let's take a minute to thank Jira Service Desk from Atlassian. They're the sponsor of this episode. Are you tired of clunky support tools that are a pain to use? That doesn't sound like very much fun. Modernize IT support with Jira Service Desk from Atlassian. Jira Service Desk is a new service management software that IT teams will love to use. It's built on the Jira platform. Jira Service Desk delivers everything that your IT team needs from $10 a month. Jira Service Desk lets you give customers an easy way to ask for help. You can stay on top of service level agreements with dynamic queues and mobile alerts. You can help your agents be productive, from putting out fires to helping employees get stuff done. You can automate repetitive tasks so that your agents can focus on solving the important stuff. Jira Service Desk can also help external support teams, including those who want to use customer feedback to guide product development. Group customers so you can filter queues, you can customize service level agreements, pull reports by organization. Customer emails can now be branded and customized, and you can set up schedules and rules to control when and how emails are sent. Easily integrate Jira Service Desk with Confluence to build a support knowledge base so your team can provide quick and easy support to customer requests. Our IT department uses Jira Service Desk here to track projects as well as tasks assigned to each project as it moves from concept to implementation to the final product. They take advantage of Jira Service Desk customization to track tasks and progress made by assignees using swim lanes or the department's Kanban board. Jira Service Desk provides real-time visualizations. Once a task is completed, the ticket is going to move to the completed column. It makes it really easy to understand. Jira Service Desk integrates with other Atlassian products as well, of course, like HipChat, so notifications from Jira Service Desk are easily sent via HipChat and vice versa. Jira Service Desk is simple to set up and so affordable, you won't even need your boss's approval. How about that? For a free trial of Jira Service Desk, all you got to do is visit Atlassian.com/twit. The first 100 signups will receive a free t-shirt. See why over 20,000 IT teams love Jira Service Desk by trying it with a free 7-day trial today. That's Atlassian.com/twit, and we thank them for their support.
So we've officially got our jetpacks, but what about our flying cars? They have long been the dream of all kinds of techies, from researchers at NASA to Google's Larry Page. But according to a new white paper, Uber has a plan to fast forward the future and finally make flying cars a reality. Joining us to talk about Uber Elevate is Alex Davies, who oversees transportation coverage at Wired. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you. It's good to be here on Halloween.
Yes, we should mention it's Halloween. You're dressed like Andre Agassi. I dress like this.
Yep.
I might call you Andre. I apologize.
That's fine.
All right.
So Uber's paper says that within a decade, Uber will have a network of on-demand, fully electric aircraft that take off and land vertically. What can you tell us about these flying cars?
So the first thing to know is that they don't really exist yet. And that Uber has no plans to make them exist. What Uber is saying in this project, where it put out basically a 100-page technical paper, it says that it thinks that there's a lot of technology that could be ready in 5 to 10 years, ready meaning actually certified by the FAA and ready to carry multiple passengers, like 150 miles an hour over long distances. Uber is saying that that's going to be ready and that they want to play a role in catalyzing this technology and bringing it to a point where it can actually be brought to market.
So just like they don't make the cars that Uber drivers drive now, they are not planning on making these self-driving planes, or self-driving planes.
Exactly. And to start with, Uber says they would probably have human pilots in them, but they would also have a lot of semi-autonomous software with the goal eventually to go to a more autonomous system, which makes more sense here. But no, they're not going to make them. And basically Uber's saying, hey, look, we've got 50 million or whatever it is active users on here, many of whom would definitely love to be able to fly to work instead of take a longer Uber ride. And so if you guys can make the plane so we can get together with the FAA and get this certified, then we've got a whole demand base and an app that people already have downloaded on their phones. So let's make this happen.
So can't you take an Uber like helicopter from some places? Like I forget what it's called, but I feel like I've seen that. Isn't that available for now? Just not a self-driving helicopter, but real helicopters?
They do that on occasion. They do it, I think it's called Uber Chopper, and they do it more as a promotional bid. They'll do it at things like Sundance, or during the summer in New York, they'll offer flights to the Hamptons. But I don't think they really make any money off of that, and that's more just to kind of get people excited about Uber. And this is a more serious, well, as serious as flying cars can be, but this is more in the vein of this is an actual business idea.
So tell us, I guess, a little bit about the technology involved with this idea. I mean, do they kind of have any ideas about the mechanisms of how this kind of future is going to work exactly?
Sure. So the aircraft themselves, Uber wants them to be fully electric, which really helps in cities in terms of efficiency, especially helicopters are not very efficient. They would be fully electric, what are called VTOL aircraft, and that stands for vertical takeoff and landing. Kind of like a Harrier jet or an Osprey, which are the big military versions of this, where the aircraft takes off vertically, but they can actually fly horizontally. So it combines the big upsides of helicopter, which are you don't need a full runway to land. You can land on a helipad or really any flat surface, with the efficient level flight of an airplane. And so they would have tilt rotors, which means they'd have rotors facing up that once it's taken off would then orient horizontally, and so would fly like a plane. And there are various people working on that kind of technology. Boeing and Airbus are kind of messing around with it, and there's a company called Joby Aviation that says it'll be there. And so it's not crazy to think that this technology could actually be ready in 5 years.
So when I think about like the regulation that drone deliveries have had to go through, I mean, we all know that like Amazon trying to get their Amazon drone delivery, regulated, or trying to get through all the regulations. By the time they finally did, like their drone was outdated. But then I think about how Uber goes through regulations, and they just kind of push through and hope for the best. Like, they took on the cab companies. And so which way do you think this is going to go?
So I asked Uber that question, and they basically said that, like, look, we definitely have to be cooperative here because a lot of cities may not have rules against like specific taxis, but the FAA definitely has rules, and good rules, against commercial use of totally new aviation technology. And when I spoke to aviation experts, they said that sure, like the technology might be ready in 5 years, but if you think you're going to get the FAA to certify, to come up with rules for an entirely new kind of aircraft, certify it, and then certify enough that you can actually get them into flight, and you think you can do that in 5 years, you're nuts. And that's going to be the main holdup here, is getting the FAA to say, yes, we understand what this technology is. Yes, it's safe. And there's a lot of new stuff here. Electric planes are still very new. Planes with semi-autonomous software, in this context, which is different from the way regular autopilot works with a really well-trained pilot, that's new. And the idea of landing and taking off, flying at just a few thousand feet at this kind of speed, that's all very new. So there's a lot of stuff the FAA would have to work through, and it doesn't move that quickly.
So what do you think Silicon Valley is so fascinated by flying cars? Is it just that we hate traffic, or what do you think it is?
Fly over the top of all traffic, I think.
I think, honestly, that's it. And, well, that's going to be the main reason anybody wants to get in one of these things, right, is the idea if you can go from San Francisco to Palo Alto in 15 minutes instead of an hour drive down the 101, that's fantastic. Lots of people are going to do that. Uber can make plenty of money of doing that. But what's really exciting here is that this is kind of the Silicon Valley actually doing the thing that people who really love Silicon Valley say it's doing. Silicon Valley, for the most part, is just like kind of meh apps or like super coddling services that you don't need. But if you can make flying cars, if you can make that actually work, like that's the Jetsons. That's really making the future. And if you can make people's lives better, that's Silicon Valley doing what I think people really think it should be doing.
Well, Alex, thank you so much for joining us. Alex Davies is at Wired, and you cover all transportation. So what's on your beat besides Uber?
Autonomous cars are kind of the day-to-day bread and butter. We're also looking at drones, keeping an eye on Hyperloop, and then even smaller, more, I don't want to say mundane things, but infrastructure challenges, how to make your city bike-friendly, how to help pedestrians, really look at anything that gets people from A to B.
Nice.
Well, thanks so much, Alex.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right. Kevin K. writes in and says, regarding your story about Facebook targeting ads, what about cable providers? Currently, different TV ads show in different cities based upon that city's demographics. Technology exists, Technology exists for this to be done on a per house basis using settings in your cable box. I don't know if it's being done house by house yet. However, this brings up many of the same discrimination issues as were brought up in your story about Facebook ads.
Yeah, so this was a story we talked about last week. ProPublica did a piece about how they put in an ad and excluded African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians of ethnic affinity. So like they didn't exclude people by race, but what they thought people, their affinity based on things they clicked on, people they were friends with, all the information that we hand over freely to Facebook all the time. So, there's been some pushback. Facebook has just said like, this is what we do. And it's true. I looked into this, and Comcast has something called Ad Tag, which customizes the final 5 seconds of a 30-second commercial by neighborhood level. So it could be into the same level of discrimination. I mean, it's just, I think advertising gets into a really some complicated areas. And I just think when they talk about like excluding people by racial affinity, I think it gets a lot of people's hackles up. So we'll see. I mean, and this was specifically for a housing event, but then Facebook says that ProPublica was being a little bit disingenuous because what they did, the ad they did was for an event to talk about housing. It was like an event to talk about if your rent has been raised unfairly. And what ProPublica says, we didn't want to do a fake ad because journalists can't just like go, and make a fake ad to prove their story. Like they were keeping their legal end of the bargain too. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely.
So whether you're watching this on Halloween or the day after, you're going to want to know how your neighbors made all that fake smoke. You want to know, or the electricity or whatever weird things they do on Halloween. Our favorite physicist is here to tell us the science behind the Halloween magic. But first, let's take a minute to thank ZipRecruiter, the sponsor of this episode. Now, earlier in the show, we talked about unconscious bias in hiring. And if you want to try and avoid these pitfalls when you hire your employees, one way to do that is to cast as wide a net as possible. And this means you need to post your job on all the top job sites. And with ZipRecruiter, now you can. Posting jobs in one place isn't enough to find quality candidates. With ZipRecruiter.com, you can post to more than 100 job boards, including social media networks like Facebook and Twitter, all with one click. Just post once and watch your candidates roll into ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use interface. ZipRecruiter offers optimized pages that look great on any screen. You can add their unique mobile apply process for more visitors and applicants. Find candidates in any city or industry nationwide. No more juggling emails or calls to your office. You can add multiple users to your account. So quickly screen candidates with real-world questions using free-form, multiple choice, or yes/no formats. Rate them and hire the right person fast. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by over 1 million businesses. More than 160 million candidate applications have been delivered. Right now, you can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free by going to ZipRecruiter.com/twit. That's ZipRecruiter.com/twit. And we thank ZipRecruiter for their support of Tech News Today.
All right, tonight is Halloween, if you couldn't guess. And you might be asking yourself how that house in the corner that so obviously has all the time in the world was able to make that haunted mansion spew smoke or reflect ghosts at you or something. Joining us to take the fun out of it all with science is Rhett Allain from Wired. How's it going, Rhett?
Good. Or actually, I'm here to put the fun in.
All right. Excellent.
With
yes.
More science.
Exactly. Let's pick this all apart. So you have a piece on Wired. It's like a Wired twofer day. We have 2 guests from Wired today. I love it. In your piece, you detailed 4 common tricks that we see all the time, usually when you're trick-or-treating in that house. They've got their stuff together. They know how to do it. Let's pick these things apart. First is the easy one, the dry ice fog. I feel like this is the one of the 4 that I can actually do. What exactly is happening here when you combine these 2, dry ice and water?
Okay, so dry ice is super cold, and that's it. And also, when you put it in water, it turns into dry. Dry ice goes straight to a gas, so it turns into a very, very cold gas, and that cools down the air, there's water in the air that condenses, and boom, there you get a cloud. So what you're seeing with that white stuff, that's really just water vapor. It's super simple to do. It's fun. Carbon dioxide, dry ice is just fun to play with. So you can put it in the water and it makes that cool stuff. It's not dangerous because it's just carbon dioxide. So
right.
Will it burn your hand if you touch it?
Oh yeah, okay. I'm sorry. It's not safe. Yeah, don't touch it because it's so cold. It's essentially burns your hand.
Yeah.
But you can do the same thing with liquid nitrogen if you can get that. But that's actually what I have in that blog post. I couldn't find dry ice, so I used liquid nitrogen.
We get our dry ice at the grocery store.
Yeah, you can get it at the grocery store. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very cold. Also, if you have small children that like to do experiments, to have them not put it in things that will explode, because if you put it in something and then let it just fill it just.
And if you have bigger kids that want to do experiments, they want to make things explode.
Right.
At a certain point, you cross that line, you're like,
yeah,
let's
you never know how those things are going to blow up. So I would say don't. Okay, well.
All right. So next, how do you kind of tackle the lightning effects without actually dying? Let's say this is the one that kind of scares me a little bit.
When it becomes winter, you just shuffle your socked feet across the carpet and zap someone with your finger. It's the exact same thing. It's exactly the same thing. So it builds up a change in potential. Free charges in the air accelerate, and then when they accelerate, they knock other electrons free, and it's an avalanche. You get more and more electrons getting free. And these electrons, when they recombine, they make light. But the very cool thing, is that you need one free electron to start with. And most of the time, those free electrons come from cosmic rays. So if you had no free ions in the air, you wouldn't have sparks. And we get those from cosmic radiation. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. Now, this next one's really cool. I've heard about this before, and I know that I've seen it in like haunted houses. I think it's a commonly employed trick called Pepper's Ghost. How exactly is this executed? It makes you think you're seeing a ghost, basically.
Yeah, I think the most famous case of this, if you've been in the Haunted Mansion at Disney World or Disneyland, they do this with great effect. And it looks real, but it's essentially just a piece of glass. That's all it is. It's glass. And if you look into a house at night, you should say, why are you doing that? But if it's a bright house, then you can see in, but they can't see you. And it's because the light reflects off, and they see the reflection more than they see through it. So glass both transmits and reflects light. And so if you put a clever geometry in there, then you can get the reflected, quote, ghost to appear next to a human. And that's a great effect. It works really well. They can use this in plays and movies. You can make, and like I said, in the Disney World Haunted Mansion things, it works too. So,
what's the difference between a Pepper's Ghost and a hologram?
Okay, so a hologram is formed from some completely different means. And mainly the hologram, you can kind of rotate over a larger angle and still see it. This one, you have to be in the right spot. And if you're not in that right spot, then you don't see it. Yeah. So that's why it works really well for movies. It works well for a play where the audience are fixed and they can't move. But if you put this thing up, it's obvious it's not a real ghost. It's not a real ghost.
Okay.
Yeah, not like those that we always see, floating around in sheets and stuff.
Right.
Those are the real thing. Finally, tell us about things that glow in the dark. Other than light sticks or glow sticks and stuff like that. But
yeah, the glow sticks are different. Glow in the dark, though. These, if you think about it, it's the coolest thing ever. The idea is it depends on quantum mechanics to really understand it, but it's not too hard. So if you take an atom and you excite the electron and it comes back down, you get light. But with glow in the dark, you excite it and it comes down at more than one step. And it turns out that one of those steps where it jumps down and gives off light is in a forbidden transition. So it takes a long time. So you shine light on this material, the electrons get excited, and then as they drop back down, they give off light. And that's why it glows in the dark. Now, the image you showed is if you can use a blue laser pointer, and since it has a high enough frequency to get the transition to start, it works really well. So you can essentially draw with a laser pointer on glow-in-the-dark material, and it activates it very, very well because it's only that one color light that shifts it up, and then it shifts back down, and you get the light. So that's pretty cool.
It persists over time, fades really slowly.
Yeah.
I've seen these on big walls before. It's super cool. It's a lot of fun.
Fades as more and more of the electrons make that illegal transition, the forbidden transition, and then they eventually all do it, and then it's not glowing anymore.
Excellent. All right. So I don't know how do we put this into play then? Like these are interesting dissections of things that we've seen. How are people so dang creative to then take that and then go, here's how I'm going to make it so that I've got a haunted house that uses all of these things? I mean, is it as easy as what you're saying right now?
No,
The execution is way more difficult.
That's absolutely right. I mean, Pepper's Ghost is a great example. You can make that work, but you got to have it set up so it works. You got to have the glass so it's hidden so they can't tell it's a piece of glass. You got to have the lighting in the right place. You got to put the people in the right place, and that's where the artistry of making these things comes into play. Right. And the same thing with the fog and stuff. You got to make it have the best effect. Just understanding how it works isn't enough, but it is fun.
Yeah.
So, Rhett, are you dressed as a physics professor today?
I am. Can you tell? I'm the Hulk.
Oh, now I get it.
Yeah. So, but don't make me angry.
Okay.
All right, we will not. Rhett Allain at Wired.com. Thanks for coming on and destroying some of the science behind the illusion. We appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime you need stuff destroyed, boom, I'm just going to do that.
All right, cool. Thank you, Rhett. We appreciate you coming on tonight.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, happy Halloween.
All right.
TNT's fan of the day is Worthy Advisor on Instagram, who says, Beta, the cat, likes to watch tech news with me. And we can see Beta watching, I think.
There's Beta.
Beta.
Almost watching us through the screen
Right.
instead of me with my closed eyes on the screen.
How did you find a black cat for Halloween?
I know. Isn't it weird? It crossed our path, even
Right.
on this show.
Yes. So if you're watching in costume today, definitely take a picture of yourself. Show us how you watch in costume or not in costume, or show us how you listen. Just record a video. Take a picture of yourself or your setup, post it on Instagram, Google+, Twitter, or Facebook. Use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT, and we will find it.
Yes, we will. All right, up next, virtual reality and bacon come face to face for the very first time. Face to bacon?
Mouth?
Face. Yeah, there's something in there. I'm not going to continue looking because it'll just get awkward.
Goggle to mouth.
Yeah, okay. Sure. But first, let's take a minute to thank Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. They're the sponsor of this episode. Mortgages, am I right? Right? Like, you got to do the mortgage. The process sucks. Like, filling out all the paperwork and everything. It's not the most enjoyable process in the world, having to dig up all that kind of stuff. But you want to, because at the end, on the other side, you've got this wonderful home that you're going to move into, so it makes it worth it. You still got to get through the paperwork and the gathering of all that information and giving them what they actually need. And that's what you can do easily, actually, with Rocket Mortgage. They bring the mortgage approval process into the 21st century. It's fast, powerful, and completely online. Rocket Mortgage has taken all the complicated, time-consuming parts of applying for a mortgage out of the equation. If you hate searching through stacks of old files and paperwork, well, with Rocket Mortgage, you can easily share your bank statements and pay stubs at the touch of a button. That's going to help you get approved in minutes for a custom mortgage solution that's been tailored to your unique financial situation. And even better, with Rocket Mortgage, you can do all of this on your phone or your tablet. It's a quick online process that you can manage from the convenience of your couch. So if you're looking to refinance your mortgage or buy a home, you can check out Rocket Mortgage today at quickenloans.com/TNT. That's quickenloans.com/TNT, equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org, number 3030. And we thank Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans for their support.
Virtual reality bacon. You knew it was just a matter of time, right? Well, Erin Carson from CNET, she never misses a hot virtual reality story, and today is no different. Erin reports that Hormel just launched a new campaign where you can sample high-end bacon with your VR goggles. Now, don't expect it to work with your Oculus Rift or your PlayStation VR yet. The Black Market, it's called the Black Market. It's a new Hormel campaign that includes a Google Cardboard with scratch and sniff, quote, technology.
Oh.
It also lets you buy bacon with your eyeballs.
Mm-hmm.
So the shopping experience is in VR, but the bacon, my friends, that is real.
I went into the world. I did the world a little bit. I encountered a floating bacon in front of me, and you can scan around it. It's this big high-res floating bacon in the middle of this world after you explore a little bit. And then I was presented with a coupon and a buy button. And I thought to myself, damn it, this is the future.
You want to buy bacon with your eyes?
I don't know if I do. Like, this is the future. This is the future of VR. VR was untainted. I love bacon, but no, this can't be the future. Tell me this isn't the future of VR.
This is the future of VR. It's all advertising all the time.
It always goes back to advertising.
I know. And they try to sneak it in there with bacon. Who doesn't like bacon? I mean, I don't eat bacon, but I mean, I wish I could eat bacon. I would if it didn't come from such cute little piggies.
They rationalize selling this stuff by means of bacon. And I'm a bacon lover. I do love bacon, but I'm sorry, I can't support this. VR cannot have this sort of blatant bacon floating in it, because then the coupon comes and you're like, oh, I get where you're going with this.
Right. But if you had the special Google Cardboard from Hormel that said the scratch and sniff, you would smell it. If it maybe the only thing coming between you and buying bacon with your eyeballs is the smell of bacon.
It's the scratch and sniff sticker on the viewer. That's it. That would change my mind. TNT records live every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific. Oh, maybe the smell or the sound. The sound of bacon would help. I don't remember there being any sizzling when I was in the experience. That may have helped, actually. Sorry, I got distracted by bacon. See, I guess bacon really is a good distractor. TNT records live every Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. UTC at twit.tv/live. You can be part of the show by emailing us at tnt@twit.tv. You can leave us a short voicemail at 260-TNT-SHOW and find us on Twitter. We're at Tech News Today TV.
And thank you to everyone who listens to us in the morning or afternoon or the evening on the Amazon Echo Flash briefing. And thanks for leaving reviews. I just went and looked at them, and they were all so nice. So thank you. Even if you have a bad review, leave it there. There's always room for improvement.
Sure.
You can get updates on the latest tech news and events from Leo, Jason, and me. It's a quick 3, 4, 5 minutes to hear Twit's Flash Briefing. Go into your Amazon Echo app, search for Twit, subscribe, and keep watching us because you like the commentary too. I know you do. Find all the ways to subscribe to our show at twit.tv/TNT. And if you want to find out why I don't eat bacon, tweet at me. I'm at Megan Maroney.
And I guess you could tweet at me to find out why I do eat bacon, because it's good. That's why. I'm at Jason Howell on Twitter. Thanks to Brian, our technical director. Thanks to Burke, our Words on a Screen director. Thanks to Kevin, our editing director. And thanks to you for talking tech with us today. We'll see you all tomorrow. Bye, everybody.